Hi, my name is Brittany Gottschalk, and thank you so much for spending time listening to my presentation. I have titled it A New Perspective on Leadership. I chose this title because it really is kind of a good way to sum up my experience in the Silver Challenge. I realize now that I had a very narrow perspective on what leadership was and what it meant to be a leader. And now, after the challenge, that has grown, and I feel like I understand leadership and being a leader more. My coach was George Vincent, or I called him Wally, and I really enjoyed working with him over the course of the challenge. So Wally and I worked on 3 categories of goals: personal, academic, and professional. My personal goal was to make time for self-care. This is something that I struggle with. My second goal was an academic goal, and it was to get a 4.0 GPA, which I did accomplish. My third goal was my professional goal, and that was to decide on a graduate school or program, which at this point I have finally done. These were all things that I considered to be a challenge for me at the beginning of the Silver Challenge. Moving on to growth. Like I've said, I feel like I've grown a lot during this challenge in ways I really didn't expect to. And here are a few examples. Being able to successfully organize a project with a group of people. I had several group projects over the course of this challenge in my classes, and I was able to use skills that I was learning. The second one is pushing myself to reach goals I once considered unattainable. I've had to, again, shift my perspective on what is possible for myself. Third, keeping inclusivity and equality at the forefront of my mind. And fourth, I learned how to engage in dialogue with people who have a very different opinion than I do. The last 2 I learned during 2 conferences that I attended virtually pertaining to these topics, and they were very detailed, and I learned a lot and got to hear a lot of different people speak. For my community engagement project, I chose to look into the Users Union. This was an organization I've always wanted to know more about and would love to work with, but I hadn't really had the time to dive into their website and what they're about fully. So here's a few points about them. This organization addresses a variety of social justice issues. Their goal is to provide a voice to those often forgotten, so people like women, substance abusers, immigrants, etc. They work to change policies and laws surrounding substance abuse issues, and this involves being active in the community and speaking with politicians. A weakness I discovered was that the organization may need to narrow their focus on just a few related social justice issues rather than so many different unrelated issues under one organization. Or they could create sub-organizations under the existing one, and that would also be a good option. I just feel like they could be spreading their efforts too thin in too many different ways, and their success might suffer as a result. For personal motivation, it's important for me to lead for social change because it's important to exercise any privileges you may have by standing up for those who do not have that same privilege. And because breeding kindness affects our society, creates a new perspective for people, and builds a climate for tolerance and acceptance for all people. So I think these are little ways that we can make a big difference, and it all requires some leadership skills. The why that motivates me is my children's futures, and this would mean for my daughter as a woman and my son as a Black male. It's important for me to set a positive example for them as a hard worker, as a leader myself, and just to lead to create a better future for them. So finally, my future goals. and plans for the future. The goals and plans I have regarding leadership and civic engagement are to commit to being a lifelong learner. I feel like as soon as we stop committing to being willing to learn, we stop developing as a human. I want to work in substance abuse treatment after attending graduate school. So I would love to be a therapist, work in a residential treatment center, or maybe start my own treatment center one day. And finally, I want to work towards the reformation of policies regarding substance abuse and push to make mental health care affordable and accessible to all people. These last two are very passionate topics in my life, and I want to dedicate my professional life to improving the current conditions for people struggling with a chemical dependency. So thank you so much for listening to my presentation, and I hope you have a good day.